The most famous painting in the world began because of a plate of rice that no one complimented. Hello, and welcome to Sleep History. My name is Vinci, and tonight I'll share my version of how Leonardo da Vinci ended up painting the Mona Lisa out of pure frustration. Many people don't know this, but before painting the world's most iconic artwork, Leonardo da Vinci went completely silent for 3 days. Not for meditation, not for an existential crisis, but simply out of spite. Yes, the man who sketched the human body with surgical precision, who designed machines centuries ahead of his time, and who wrote in mirror script as if challenging time itself, stopped speaking for 3 full days. Why? Because no one complimented the risotto he personally prepared for the court's dinner. And so begins our story, not of wars or grand discoveries, but of a genius, a quiet insult, a disappointed evening, and a smile the entire world still tries to understand. It was a pleasant evening in Florence, the kind of night where the wind knows exactly where to blow, and the stars settle into their places like they belong there. Leonardo was excited. He had spent the entire day perfecting a new recipe. Rice with wild herbs and white wine, he noted in his journal with pride. This time, no one will dare overlook my culinary genius, he whispered to himself, adjusting his beard with dignity. Dinner was served. Glasses clinked. The guests chatted cheerfully about everything except the rice. Leonardo watched, a polite smile on his face, his eyes quietly scanning the table. Until Ludovico Sforza, the host of the evening, praised the bread. Yes, the bread. Made by a new baker whose only skill was getting lost in his own ovens. Leonardo froze. He looked down at his plate, stood up with calm grace, and walked out of the room without saying a single word. 3 days. 3 long days of silence. According to accounts from the time, he did nothing but write, sketching codes, drawing impossible machines, and staring into the distance like he wanted to erase humanity with a compass. It was during that silence that the idea was born, to paint something that needed no explanation, no praise, but still unsettled people. Leonardo decided he needed a portrait. Not just any portrait. Something subtle, still, almost provocative. Something that, like his risotto, looked simple, but was undeniably sophisticated. And then he met Lisa. Or rather, he was introduced to her by mistake. He had been looking for a lady of the court, but got the name wrong. Lisa Gherardini, a merchant's wife, had no great status and no great ambitions. But she had a smile. A smile she didn't use to flirt or to please, but to avoid speaking. She smiled like someone hiding a trivial secret, like knowing where the palace's best figs were hidden, and never telling. Leonardo saw it and thought, perfect, finally someone else who stays quiet when they're annoyed. The painting began. But like everything Leonardo did, it began and then refused to end. Weeks passed, then months. Every detail was redone again and again. The eyes, they reflected more than they saw. The hands,
still as if they were about to move, but refused to. The smile. Oh, the smile. It never changed, but Leonardo swore it did. Some say he tried to capture the flavor of his risotto in the tones of her skin. Others believe he hid little jokes in the shadows of her hair. But one thing is certain. The Mona Lisa was painted with refined rage.
By the end of that year, the painting was still unfinished. Leonardo said, "Art cannot be rushed." But truthfully, no one had asked. Lisa left. The world kept turning, and the painting remained, smiling at no one. But Leonardo knew not all screams come from the throat. Some come from eyes that stare straight through you, while the corner of a mouth lifts just enough to remind you you forgot to praise the rice. The Mona Lisa was not born from divine inspiration. She began in a moment of stubborn silence. Leonardo, offended that no one complimented his white wine risotto, slipped into an introspective state, one that would give the world its most analyzed and debated painting in art history. The model, Lisa Gherardini, with her nearly sarcastic smile, became a mirror of Leonardo himself, a man who spoke little but drew everything. The painting was never finished. Not that year, not the next, not the one after. And yet, Leonardo carried it with him, like a silent ghost inside a wooden frame. By 1479, Leonardo no longer lived in Florence. He had passed through Milan, Rome, Bologna, and now he was heading to France as a guest, or a luxury prisoner, of King Francis I. And yes, he took the painting. He didn't return it to Lisa, or to her husband, or to the state. The Mona Lisa became part of his personal luggage. Tucked between notebooks and sketches of impossible machines, there she was, rolled up, protected, and silent, like a companion that never aged, but also never replied. It was said he spoke to the painting, at night, in French. And even though the painting never responded, he seemed content just filling the silences that humans never knew how to honor. For Leonardo, the Mona Lisa was everything his risotto wasn't to the guests that night. Unforgettable. In his final years, Leonardo wrote more than ever. Backward scribbles, odd lists, cryptic phrases. Between anatomy studies and blueprints of folding bridges, entire pages were dedicated to her. She watches like someone who knows and stays silent like someone who chooses to. When everyone else leaves me, she'll still be watching. There's no glory greater than a silence well held. But one note in particular stands out. Sometimes a smile is the most elegant revenge. No one knows if he meant Lisa, or himself, or the smile he painted and never finished. Because yes, even in his 60s, he was still retouching her. Each trip, a new stroke. Each disappointment, a new layer. Every insult he didn't respond to became a new shadow in the corner of her mouth.
Leonardo died in 1519, in France, under the care of the king himself. They say in his final days, he asked for the painting to be turned toward him, as if her smile brought him comfort, or revenge, or both. When he died, the Mona Lisa was at his side.
The king inherited her, as if he were inheriting a secret. But the truth? The Mona Lisa was never truly a portrait of Lisa. Not a portrait of love or beauty. It was a passive-aggressive note, painted with genius and resentment. A visual reply to a dinner where no one praised the rice. And now she remains on the wall of the Louvre, smiling, as if she knows you'll never really understand.
Leonardo died the same way he lived, surrounded by ideas, sketches, and a painting no one had commissioned, but that he refused to let go of. The Mona Lisa became more than a portrait. It was an emotional legacy, a silent message to a world that rarely listened. But what happened to the painting after his death, even the greatest Renaissance mind couldn't have predicted.
After Leonardo's death, the Mona Lisa was inherited by the King of France. She became part of his personal collection, hung in his private chambers like a rare and exotic trophy. The king reportedly said, "She looks at me with discernment," which may have been the first time someone openly admitted to feeling judged by a painting. Decades passed. Kings came and went. Wars, treaties, revolutions, and somehow the smile remained. Always the same. Always somewhere between almost and not quite. Eventually, someone had the brilliant idea to hang her in a museum. What was once an intimate whisper became a public spectacle. And that's when things began to spiral. She began to be studied like a divine riddle. Experts measured the curve of her mouth, analyzed the pigments, constructed elaborate theories about her emotional state. Some believed it was Leonardo himself in disguise. Others claimed her smile changed depending on your mood. A few insisted there were secret codes hidden in her eyes, numbers, letters, messages. Meanwhile, the Mona Lisa simply kept smiling. Thousands lined up just to stare at her for 30 seconds. Flashes, gasps, shaky selfies. Her silence stood in stark contrast to the noise of the modern world, as if mocking how quickly she was being admired. Leonardo would have found it hilarious.
In 1911, someone stole her. Yes, a man named Vincenzo Perugia, a house painter and proud Italian, hid inside the museum, rolled the painting under his arm, and calmly walked out. She disappeared for 2 years. And in those 2 years, her fame exploded. Headlines, cultural panic, wild conspiracies. Some said she was sold to secret millionaires. Others said she was destroyed. There were even rumors that she had escaped on her own. When the painting was finally recovered, she returned to the Louvre as a pop culture icon. But she remained calm, the kind of calm no celebrity could ever manage, as if her smile now said, back to the chaos.
Today, she's still there, just watching. Billions of eyes have seen her. None have fully understood her, and maybe that's the point. What began as a culinary tantrum became an eternal symbol of something no one can quite name. Maybe it's beauty. Maybe it's mysterious. Maybe it's just a bored woman being painted by a frustrated man trying to prove a point. And maybe she's still laughing about it.
Not every genius has to change the world with an invention. Sometimes it's enough to paint quietly and let the world make noise around the silence.
the Mona Lisa isn't just a painting. She's a reminder that even the greatest creators have bad days. And, with a little luck, one of those moods might just last 500 years. And maybe, like Leonardo, you too are ready to let silence paint what words cannot.